Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning from wherever you're joining us from today. My name's Sarah and I'm the Program and Event Manager at the Reactor in Sydney, Australia. Welcome to a Microsoft Reactor Sydney live stream event and another episode of our Devs Downunder series. Today, I would like to welcome and honoured to have with us today Akshenka Malik. Sorry if I've said that wrong.
That's okay. Yeah, it's a concha.
Okay, great. So Akshenka is a data scientist and a Microsoft AI MVP and an international speaker. After studying financial maths, and this is the next word, the actuarial
Yep, that's it. That's actually on right.
science at UCC Ireland, she realised she wanted to work with people as well as numbers. She's now a senior data and AI consultant at Can you say that one for me as well?
Valrada. No, you're all good.
Stepping over my words this morning. She is working with clients to help them solve problems by making more informed decisions with data. So in today's session, she'll be going through exactly the service, what exactly the service is and how to set it up and use Azure Cognitive Search for different scenarios. So you'll see everyone that I've put into the comment section a link to the check-in link. If you could check in for today. We've kindly provided some additional resources from the session and some other stuff, so you can check that out. The event code for today is 14235. Please do send us your questions throughout the session and we will try and answer as many as possible. So we will speak for about 40 to 45 minutes with about 10 minutes for questions at the end. However, do send us your questions throughout. And we'll also send you a link to our feedback survey at the end. So the same event code, which is 14235. So if you could fill that out, that would be awesome because your feedback helps us curate our topics for future. This session today, if there's anything that you've missed, will also be on our YouTube channel. So there will be an on-demand version available. So if there's anything that you'd like to refer back from today, you can go check that out on our YouTube channel. We'll provide the link to that YouTube channel in the check-in link. But without further ado and any more messing up of any of the words, I'd like to hand over to Akshenka to begin for today. So over to you and thank you.
Perfect. Okay, cool. Thank you, Sarah, for the intro and all the links and stuff right there. And she's mentioned the feedback. Hey, I love having feedback too. If you don't like what I'm presenting or if you don't like the way I've done it, I'd like to hear it so the next time I can make it better. So make sure you do fill out the feedback at the end. But yeah, my name's Akshenka and I'm very glad that you've all joined in the session and kind of given up your lunch, / I'm hoping you're still eating. But look, we'll dive straight in. I'm going to try and keep an eye on the time just so I don't go over. And for questions, I tend to kind of forget to look at the comments coming in. So I will try and keep them towards the end. But my Twitter is there. Feel free to reach out afterwards or at any time if you do have any questions after. So let's just start with introductions. Sarah's done a great job of introducing me already. But yeah, that was kind of a joke photo that I put into like one of the first few presentations I did. Now it's just stuck with me. It's a great handy little one to be like, yep, that's me. My name's Akshenka. I'm from Ireland. I'm currently based in Melbourne and going through the 6th lockdown. So if I sound slightly insane, blame it on that. Or if I'm saying really something weird, blame it on the lockdown. That's kind of everything now at this stage. But I am a Microsoft AI MVP and also a senior data and AI consultant at Valrada. So hey, if you're interested in what the topic is today and you like what Azure Cognitive Search can do and you wanted to implement in your company, reach out, we can probably help. But yeah, look, it's an easy slide to kind of get into the topic itself. Throw in any questions and stuff. And if you've got any kind of like, oh, I'm talking too quickly, or if there's not the right things on the screen, Sarah's going to jump in and let me know at any stage. So let's dive into the agenda for today. It's going to be a little bit specific to what we're talking about. So we're going to talk about the service, Azure Cognitive Search, exactly what it does, what is the principle behind it, why are we talking about it, how do you make it work, how do you set it up, what are the different things you need with your data attaching to it, and also how you build in AI at the end of it, all the cool little bits of it. So that's kind of what we're talking about. What we're not talking about is how do you implement this into your own application, how do you integrate all this kind of stuff? A, there's just not enough time, and B, that's not really where the kind of work I do. So I'm not too sure exactly how you do that either. I know there's REST APIs and developers can do that kind of part of this, but what we're going to talk about is how do you build your own search service. So that's our agenda for today, and let's see how well we're going to go doing with that. So let's take a step back. what exactly is a search engine? We kind of tend to forget about it just a little bit because it's just so ingrained into our daily life. Google, Bing, they're all there. You just kind of go on and do whatever you want, like look up whatever you need. So at its core, essentially, it's just a database. It's a huge library, it just has all the information you need. And so when you search for something, for example, hotels, it's going to go crawl through the library, find the right area where hotels might be sitting, which will be indexed somehow, right? There's a list of where things are in a library. So it'll go find the right place to be in, having crawled through all the different documents available and be like, okay, hotels, this is what this person's looked for. And maybe I'm looking for the best hotels in Melbourne. Probably not going to get out of the lockdown. So that's probably going to be the closest place I get to go away to, a hotel in the CBD. But maybe I want to see what the best ones are because I'm feeling bougie and I want to splurge for myself because that's all I can afford to do anymore because I can't leave. But it'll rank all the different rating ones within Melbourne quite specifically. That's at its core, essentially what a search engine does. I'm sure we all know it, but it's just good to kind of bring those kind of basics back into the front of our minds. So a really key word you're going to notice throughout this whole session is going to be index. You can just remember it as kind of like a schema or somewhere to point out where things are sitting. That's great. It's just, this is going to come up a lot. It's a really key point of the search facilities altogether. So Azure Cognitive Search, what is it? Why are we talking about it? What exactly does it do? So what this is a AI-powered cloud service. Sorry, a lot of words in there, but essentially it's just available for you to use very quickly to be able to apply it into your mobile or web applications, whatever you've already kind of got going, instead of spending God knows how much time building something that already exists, things like Google and things. You don't have to build things again. Like it's just, you don't have to start from scratch all over. It's ready to be implemented. And search is a really important feature. So if you've got almost any given context of a application, you need to be able to search through the things you've built. So this provides that kind of as a ready to go package for you to be able to implement. So that's what the whole product is. There's a few different things in terms of setting up, right? So the first thing is going to be the pricing tiers. How much is this going to cost me? Yep, it sounds great that I can plug it in and don't have to build my own search facility. So how much is it going to cost? So there's different pricing tiers available. They're all dependent on how many indexes you have, which is kind of, again, how many different places you're going to store things in or context of things. Your storage, how big is your data that you're going to be searching through, and how quickly and efficiently you want to be able to search through your solutions. So that's what the pricing tiers are based on. And as you can see, there's different varying levels of it. All the examples I'm going to be going through today are all based on the free level. Like literally, I haven't had to use any more than that, just for a very small scenario. So if you've got a kind of, I don't know, maybe a blog that you run and you want to be able to put search on top of it, it might be small enough that you can just use the free service altogether and be able to implement that there. So those are pricing tiers. And an important part of it are the replicas and partitions. So what exactly are those? So replicas allow your service to handle a higher load of search queries. Basically, if there's going to be a lot of them coming in at any given time, you need to be able to manage that and handle that. So that's what replicas will allow you to do. And the more of them, the easier it is to do. And partitions essentially is more around your storage of things and how efficiently things are stored in your search documents. The only reason these are actually important is if SLAs are important to you. If you've never heard of it or don't care about these things, they are service level agreements. So basically, this is what Microsoft is promising you in terms of availability of the product. If you only need your service to be read-only, you need at least 2 replicas. And if you want read and write SLA, which is 99% guaranteed, it'll be at any given stage, you'll be there. It'll be 3 replicas. Again, if SLAs aren't something you ever thought about, you're probably not going to need to worry about it. So I've said a lot of words. This was just to kind of so you kind of understand what these words are before I jump into the first demo, which is now. So I won't have to show it and kind of talk about it at the same time. So where are we going to find and set this all up? Our favorite place, the Azure portal, has everything in one place for us ready to go. So what I need to do is find the service. And so I'm going to search for search, which is a bit weird, but look, the first thing that'll come up is the cognitive search. And I want to create a new one. So this is essentially what it looks like. So if you've ever used Azure before, and this is kind of one of my favorite parts of Azure in general, is the fact that the UI is just completely, I know I can't think of the word, similar throughout the whole experience, I guess is the right word to use. But essentially, if you've used it once, you can kind of always use it because it stays the same throughout the whole experience. So as usual, you need a subscription. Even if you are using a free tier, it just still needs to be accountable in one place. And a resource group where you can kind of hold everything that you're creating in one place. And if you need to delete it, you can just delete the whole thing in one go. Let's just call this a sample test, I guess. I don't know. Name something. Give it a service name. The only thing I'd just kind of point out here is this might be used in certain scenarios for kind of client-facing things. So just name it something appropriate that you want to have. Again, for me, for today, let's just call it sample test. That's all good. It should work. I hope. That's not available. Let's just call it 1. The location, feel free to pick whatever location. Generally, the best location to pick is somewhere that's close to you, mostly because there can be data security laws of like where you can store your data, things like that. But hey, if you've no limitations, pick wherever you'd like, but usually somewhere close. The only other thing I'd like to point out about the location is if you do want to add any AI enrichments, the AI enrichments in this are based on Azure Cognitive Services. And this, whatever location you choose, those services need to be available in those locations too. So just be aware of that if you're going to be doing that at a future point using your cognitive search. West US2 is fine for me, and this is where you can change your pricing tiers. So if the standard isn't okay for you, you can go back down to basic. If it's too big, if you need more data storage or anything like that, feel free to pick whichever one is most appropriate to your solution. Let's next. So this is your scalability. So this is where I mentioned the replicas and partitions. So if you need specific SLAs available for your application, feel free to bulk it up. So it can go as far as you want. It can go, the price goes straight up too. So 3 is the minimum you need for a read and write SLA. Again, partitions, you can go up as much as you would as well, but look, base it all on your own specific requirements at any given time. Networking and stuff, that's essentially it. You can create tags or whatever you'd like, but that's all you really need to be able to set this up just in terms of ready to go search service. So you need to create a resource group, make sure you name the service name something that's customer friendly, give it a pricing tier, make sure your location is somewhere appropriate just to what your uses are of the service. And you kind of hit create after that. I won't hit create because I have a fear of creating things and then not deleting them. So I've already created one before, just in case everything goes completely bonkers, at least I have something to show you after. So this is what a created service looks like. There's a bunch of different options here and stuff, but let's just jump back into our slides for a second so I can explain a few terms before I jump into a live demo at the same time. So let's go back into presenter reviews. It's nice and big. Now that we've got the service ready to go, the next thing we need is data. We've got the search capabilities, but we need to be able to search something. So we need to add our data into it. So there's 2 main methods of getting your data into the service itself. So there's the pull method. So this is programmatically done. So you need to code up your solution. You need to connect your data to the service all through code. The good thing about this is it doesn't matter where your data source is, it'll connect. Any data source available, that's all good, sounds great to it. You can connect it up. And it provides a really low latency. So if you've got really like real-time data being added into your data store that you then need to be able to search upon, this might be the best option for you. But the other option is the pull method. And this is an automatic upload. So the service itself will go do all the work for you. It's all through the UI interface, and you just kind of click a few buttons and it's ready to go. However, there is going to be downsides because it's been built in specifically for use. There is limited data sources at the moment. And the only other thing I'd make sure to point out is the fact that if you do want to do any AI enrichments, you need to go through the pull method at the moment, just because of limitations on how things have been set up. They are working on it. Like I think just a month or 2 ago, they just made a new data source GA. New things are coming up as they go. They're trying to get that AI enrichment things moved towards the push method as well. But for today, we're going to be focusing on the automatic upload through the GUI interface, just so that you can see how it works, and we can also do the AI bits today. Index and indexers. So I've mentioned index, that it's going to be an important word. Let's just talk about that a little bit more. So what exactly is an index? So in the kind of search context, an index essentially is just going to be a schema. It just lays out everything where it's meant to sit so that your machine, your search thing, can actually go find it in the right place very quickly. And an indexer will put all your data in the appropriate schema places. So I know it sounds a bit complicated. A handy little kind of example to think about it is, think of your kitchen. There is a schema in your kitchen, right, where everything goes in its right place. Your mugs go into this cupboard, in your like cutlery, I guess, goes into a specific drawer. Your plates are in a specific place somewhere in like maybe another drawer. I think mine are in a drawer. I don't even know anymore. But at the end of the day, when I'm doing the dishes, they're all sitting on my kitchen sink, and I am my own indexer because I have to pick everything up and put it back into its right place where it's meant to be. And that's essentially what it is. So you've got data, which has got a schema where things are meant to sit, and your indexer goes and takes your data and puts it into its right places. And that's essentially the difference. It's just we'll talk about how to set that up in your data ideas. So I said I'd go through it before we jump into a demo. And an index has a few different attributes. So everything will be constrained by a primary key just so that everything's findable really easily. And then it's kind of, if you think about search abilities, these will fit really quickly into it. So when you search for something, I don't know, whatever you're going to type into your search bar, that's an item that needs to be searchable. So for example, if you're thinking about hotels, maybe you want the name of the hotel to be searchable. So if I go into the search bar, I can type in, I don't know, the Westin. I can't think of any hotels off the top of my head. Why no? But if I start typing the name of a hotel in, it'll come up in my search bar. A retrievable attribute essentially is just the fact that when I search for something, it'll come back in a result format. And the other things are more, how do I kind of narrow down to the exact thing I want? So it needs to be filterable. So I might want to filter on maybe the ratings, how many stars it's got. Sortable, maybe I want to sort by the price per night. And facettable, this is just splitting it into categories. So maybe there's resort categories or kind of bed and breakfast, different categories that a hotel might have. And that's what a facettable feature is. That's not face table, it's facettable. It took me forever to figure that one out, but just a heads up. So these are the main things we're going to be talking about in a moment now with our demo. So let's jump in. And hopefully I can help make all the words that I've just said make some sense now that we've got to jump in. So what we're looking to do is import our data, add it in. So there's different places you can do it. We can pick a data source. So these are the limited ones at the moment through the GUI. Most of it's just the fact that your data is already sitting in Azure and it can connect very quickly to it. So let's look at some sample ones. This is how you'd create it. So if you have data sitting in an Azure SQL database somewhere, you can pick an option to do that. The next step it'll usually ask you to do is, hey, do you want to add some cognitive skills or AI? We're going to skip at this moment. We'll come back to it just so there's not too much information being overloaded while I try and explain all this to you. So this is the index. So the first thing we're going to do is, now that we've pulled our data in, we need to create a schema for the data of where everything sits and what we want in our search capability. So let's just name this here. We need a specific key for this schema, which is going to be the primary key. And listing ID is unique to everything, so I'm going to call that the primary key. And this is, I mean, I haven't actually done this anything myself. This is, Azure has basically read through my data and pre-populated everything based on what it thinks is the best idea for it. If there's some fields that you see are missing, you can add another field into your schema. That's no problem. But it's basically gone through and just read all the different table columns in my data. So this data set itself is a real estate sample data set. So these are all just housing, I think in Seattle somewhere. I don't know, but it's a data set that has multiple different information about real estate. And as you can see, these are the features that we mentioned in an index. So what we want to be able to do is search on specific things. Just be careful, you're not going to be able to search, let's say, on numbers. So if specific type of thing, so for example, beds, the only result under that column is going to be like 2, 3, 4, 1, how many beds a place has. But if you put that into a search bar, that doesn't really have a meaning. If you just say 2, what do you want from 2 to come back? So it's a little bit hard if you're just putting numbers as searchable fields, which is why most integers don't even have that as an option. And you can go through and pick whatever else you'd like to be able to be searchable on, again, based on whatever your context is. Retrievable, so once you've searched something, what will come back as a search result? Maybe you don't want everything coming back. Maybe you do want everything coming back. Again, up to yourself what your context is and what things are filterable, sortable, facettable, just basically what things you can kind of narrow in on. So you definitely want to be able to like filter based on how many beds this house has or what the price is, those kind of different things, square feet, how many days it's been on the market. Bunch of different options. I'd just like to pull your attention a little bit to the fact that this data set has multiple different languages for the description. So it's got the description written up and then it's got description again in multiple different languages. And it's actually quickly, very quickly, interpreted the fact that, hey, this is a different language and this is what this language is. And it understands that. So when you search for something, it'll know what to look for based on the fact that your data has different languages as well. And that's already, I mean, I haven't had to do anything. It's done all that itself. And the only other extra bit here is the suggester, which if you think about when you do a Google search or a Bing search, when you start typing something in, suggestions come up. It's the exact same principle. Maybe when you start typing the street name in, you want to be able to autofill for the right options and give them a few things as suggestions. So everything here, you get to choose what you do want and don't want as features. Be careful because this is the only time you'll be able to edit any of these attributes other than retrievability. So at any given stage, once you've created the index, you can kind of go change what comes back in a search, but you can't change any of the other attributes once it's been created. You'll have to delete it and recreate your index, which, I mean, if it's a small enough data set, like that's fine. You can pull it through again. But if it's a really large data set, it's just extra hassle and works. Just make sure you've kind of gone through and picked the right thing for your scenarios. I'm happy enough with that. We can move on to creating the indexer. So I've labeled out my schema. I have data, and I need the data to be sitting in the right places for me to be able to search it later on. And that's what the indexer is going to do. So this is basically all I have to do. I have to give it a name, and then I have to tell it how often I want it to go and place the data in the right place. So this depends on how live your data is. So if you're getting new data added in kind of once every day or once every week, or maybe it's every hour, every minute, like it depends on what your latency needs to be on your solution. And you can kind of go in and choose different options there as to whatever is required. And that's it. That's all you're really required to create your index search options. And I'm not going to create now just because, again, I probably forget to delete them later. But once you hit create, they'll be stored in here and they'll tell you how many documents are in it and what the storage size is. So for the one we just did, real estate US sample data, there's about 5,000 documents in it. And that document can just be rows or whatever else it might be, and the storage size of it. So let's look into it. There's a storage explorer. We're going to go into it in a minute, but hey, let's create a demo app. What does this look like? So this basically is just a really quick mock-up of what your data will look like in a search format, just so you can see it really easily and then be maybe even able to like check it out at a later stage. So this is where customize how your individual results will be displayed. So in the main results, an individual result will look something like this. So I can have a thumbnail. Maybe in the title, I don't want to see city. Maybe I want to see what the price of that house is, the first thing I want to see. And the description of the house itself, yeah, actually, that sounds grand. I want to see the description. Let's not create the demo app. I want to see what else I can do. So these are all the things that I've got on the left-hand side, as you can see on my little, maybe I'll zoom in a bit. But this will be what the mock-up is going to look like. And this is where these bits are going to sit. And if you think about kind of like a clothing website, these are usually the things you'll notice on the left-hand side. So maybe how many beds? I don't want to see that as a number range, really. Oh, let me just make that a checkbox maybe. Number of bats, another checkbox. Square feet, let's maybe leave that as number range. You can mess around with this, see whatever you kind of want to do with it. Let's hit next. And again, also, if you want to add extra fields into kind of how you want to filter your data, feel free to go do that. And these are just suggestions. So when you start writing numbers in line with so usually when you're looking for real estate, you're going to put in the address of the place. So normally you'll see the number first, and then you want to see street, then city, region, country code. So all this is doing is like, hey, once someone's typed in a number, maybe suggest the next thing, which will be street. Once they've done that again and again, which is the in line with previous field. That's kind of it. Let's just look at our demo app, see what it looks like. I've apparently already downloaded 7 types of these. I was just trying out different things. So search start, which is just show me everything. This isn't the best formats available, obviously. So this is dollar amounts because I asked for it to show me the price as the main thing. So this is $767, $767,000, not just 762. And again, you can change whatever you'd like. So the thumbnail was the images. And it's a really quick way to show exactly what the capabilities of the search bars itself are. If you want to filter, maybe, hey, I only want to see 2-bedroom apartments, and maybe I want 2 bats in there too. And it starts filtering very quickly. I don't want to see the sold ones. I just want to see the ones that are active right now that I can buy. And I want a house. I'm sick of living in apartments in the lockdown. Let's go for a house. Maybe I want to live specifically in Seattle mainland. Again, maybe there's just no images available for those ones. And if you had a specific postcode that you wanted, go for it. But it's narrowed it down really, really quickly. And you can just see how fast and efficient this all is. So that's what our data set looks like. And I just wanted to show you how you can test it out and make sure it makes sense and does what you want it to do. And the fact is you can kind of go back and change anything you want in this as well. So maybe I didn't want to see price first, and maybe I just wanted to actually see what city it was in. I'll change that. Takes a second and it's good to go again, where now it's just changed into show me what city everything is based in. So up to yourself, again, just to be able to test things out, make sure everything's working before you go implement it into your solution. So that was one example. Let me show you another one. That's okay, you can delete everything. And there's another sample index I've created of hotel data. And this is the Search Explorer. So this is a handy way to be able to actually search your data manually to make sure the results are coming back to what you want. And it also shows it to you in a JSON format. So if I search for, let's say, these are hotels. So maybe I want a hotel with a spa in it. And it's going to go search. And this is what it gives back. So it's in a JSON format. And there also gives you URLs and stuff and things to connect it up at a later stage through APIs. But this is just so I can get you to understand exactly how the results work. And this is what you'll get when you start implementing these at a later stage. So it usually gives you a search score. The higher the score, the more likelihood that that's the result you wanted. And this is kind of, if you go back to the ranking part I mentioned really early on in terms of Google searches and Bing searches, this is the ranking. So the highest the score, that'll be the first rank in your search results. So if I looked for spa, I want to see exactly why did this come back as the first solution? Okay, in the description, it says unwind at the spa. So I found that and it's like, right, this is probably one of the best ones that you want. And I can kind of go through and there's so much detail. So this is still the exact same search. Maybe I don't actually want to see everything else and I just want to see how many hotels, let's say, have a spa. So I'll do and count, if I can type, equals true. So it says the data count is 15. So apparently there's 15 hotels in this database somewhere that I've made it learn and that have a spa or something to do with a spa at a hotel. So all these kind of search values and stuff, feel free to go have a look in the documents that I think Sarah's shared in the link for the check-in, I think she mentioned. So the links are there. You can go feel free to have a look at exactly what you can do with these query strings. There's loads of different things you can do. Maybe I wanted to highlight specifically where it's finding the words. I can do that. And what this really just helps you do is narrow down, okay, this is what my data is coming back as. Is it doing it appropriately? Is this the right way of doing it? It's a handy way to test everything you want before you actually implement it in your production environment. And that's kind of all of the sample index and stuff, everything I wanted to talk about at this stage. So let's go, and this is, I'm sure everyone's waiting for. So what we've now basically been able to do is implement, we pull our data in through the pull method. We've pulled our data in, we've connected up the data, created an index, and then created an indexer, which is read through the data, placed in the right places, and we can actually test out the search solution that we've built. And the other thing I mentioned we'll be able to do is implement some AI. So let's do that, and we can mess around with a few things inside it. So it's the exact same process. We're going to import data. So what I've done is, if I can find it, so I've created a blob store here, just called it sample data here. And there's just a bunch of different things in there. As you can see, there's images, there's some PDFs, there's some PowerPoints in there. It's just a mix of everything, and it's just been dumped in. So this is all unstructured data. I can show you really quickly just kind of all the things. There's a few images in there. There's, I don't know, there's people talking, there's PDFs. I think there's contracts in here about different things or blah, blah, blah. That's what I've thrown in. And I want to be able to get my search service to be able to actually understand this and read it and use some AI in actually labeling different parts of it. So if there's an image, maybe I want an image caption so I can search based on that caption. So that's the data. So that's in a blob store. So I'm going to choose connect to a specific blob store. Let's give it a name. I don't know what I want to name this. Unstructured data, let's call it that. What exact data you want? I want everything, content and the metadata. You can pick and choose whatever you'd like. It's already pre-connected. Choose an existing connection. So this is kind of the handy thing about having your data already in Azure. So I haven't had to basically do much more other than being like, hey, I've got data here, go look at it. I'm just pointing towards the right place. I'm like, yep, that's the one. Select, done. Now I'm going to add, once it actually validates the source of it, make sure that I've got access to this data. It'll take a couple of seconds. And now we're going to add our AI services to this. And this is kind of where it's the cool part, right? This is just data that's sitting there. And again, I know this is a small data, sample data. I just wanted to show it to you really quickly and just so it kind of makes sense. But again, you can do whatever you'd like with this at any large scale. So I want to attach a cognitive service. So there are some limited enrichments which come free within this, which probably is going to be enough for me. But in case it isn't for you and you need some specific use cases, or you've trained kind of really custom models using the cognitive services that you want to implement into your search as well, feel free to do that. It just connects you straight up into the cognitive services. And you can create your ones here or use the ones that you've already created. So it allows you to do that, connect to whatever ones you've already tried. And this is kind of where I remember at the start mentioned when you're setting up your service, make sure the location of your cognitive search service actually has cognitive services as a feature available in that location too, because this is where it's going to be needed. Cool. So I can attach more, but I'm just going to leave it at the base level. I'm going to add enrichments, and this is up to ourselves of like exactly what are the different types of enrichments we want to add to our data. You can give it names and blah, blah, blahs, but I'm going to enable OCR anyway, because I know I've got images and I want it to be able to go read through the images and extract any objects it sees or any text or anything in it. Let's say I want to extract people name, organization name, and maybe location names. I could do all these other things. If I know for a fact I've got text, so target language is text, English, and I can translate it, and all these different things you can do with AI essentially. These are the applied applications. And the image cognitive skills. So yep, I definitely want to be able to generate the tags and the captions and identify celebrities from images. So I mean, obviously celebrities is up to yourself of who you label as a celebrity, but I think anyone that's got enough of a recognition available on kind of search and the data that's already pre-existing, you'll probably be able to name them from it. So I've picked out exactly what I want to be able to do based on my data. I know I've got names and organizations in my data set somewhere in my PDF files, and I know I've got images with other people's faces in it. So let's see how well they can do. You can save your enrichments to a specific source. You can use it in different areas like Power BI. We're going to skip past that now because, again, we don't have too much time to kind of talk about everything and anything today. So let's customize our target index. And it's giving me a faulty name. Let me just, not a faulty name. I've just already used that name for a different one, again, because I've created these before, just in case things go out the window. Okay, so again, there's always going to be a primary key when you're creating an index and different features of an index that we've talked about before. So now, obviously, metadata, you don't really want metadata to be something that you search on or you can have back coming as a result. It's just too much information. Maybe you don't want that leaking out to public anyway. So I want people, organizations, locations. And again, these are the things that I just created in the previous step. And these are the names that I had given it in that step. They were kind of pre-populated. But again, if those aren't what you want, you can go ahead and change those at any given stage. Organizations, I don't like spelling that with a Z because we're not in the US. I like that in S, I can change that there. And you'll notice it also kind of identifies exactly what type of expected variables, words. I can't think of data. I'm just like, what is the term for this? Expected data is going to be in that specific field, and it will and again, if it's done incorrectly, which I don't think I've ever seen it do, but if it has and it's not the right type that you wanted, you can go ahead and change that. There's a bunch of different options that you can choose. Cool. So these are everything I want retrieved when I search upon things. So this is kind of what it's pre-built. Again, if you want other things to be filterable on things, so maybe I wanted this when I implemented it to be filterable on the organization. So if I've got data, let's say if I'm a law firm and I have all this data like documents and stuff, I can use Azure Cognitive Search to implement that on top of my data, the base layer, and basically be able to search for, let's say, I want to find a document that has, I don't know, case number or like I really shouldn't pick law because I don't know much about law, but maybe I want to find specific type of cases that I'm looking for, something about, I don't know, arbitrations. I'm making up words, but maybe you have specific organizations that you've dealt with, and you can kind of actually go filter through them and be like, actually, I just want to see answers on this one. Again, depends on your scenario, what exactly specific solutions you'd like. But once you've made sure everything's picked and exactly the way you want it, and again, make sure that all these different fields are correct and what you want. Like, this is the step that you're going to spend most time on, making sure it's accurate, because you can't edit these afterwards. And once it's set up, you don't have to worry too much about the service itself. It's ready to go and it stays the way it does. I'm going to create an indexer. So now that we've created a connection to the data, it knows where the data is. It knows where things should be placed in an index. It needs to go do that and actually distribute all this data into your index. And again, what's your schedule? So maybe my schedule is the fact that I know in my Blob store, there's new data coming in kind of every 30 minutes. And that's how often I want it to be updated. Or even if I know there's data coming in every single minute, but I only want it to be updated every half hour, every hour, maybe at the end of every day, it just gets added in. Up to yourself, set whatever schedule you like. And there's advanced options here too. Maybe you don't want to read in any PDF documents that come in. I don't know why, like whatever your reasons might be, you can include specific things, exclude them, there's loads of different options to make it really customizable. And once you've done that, you can hit create. Again, I'm just going to discard that because I've already created it. And what you'll see is when you start creating them, any issues or anything like that will come up here. And this is our Azure Blob index. So let me just grab a few of the images and things in that set. So this is an image in that Blob store. And okay, let's search for something. Search based on that image I just showed you. There's a lot of red in that image. So let's just search red and see what comes back. If I can find that image again. Cool. There's a bunch of different things happening here. Merged content. So as you can see, there's text in this image. It's recognized that there will be text. And that is the kind of heading I gave it to anything that was OCR from an image. So it's extracting any text it's seen in this image and converting it to words that a machine can read. And as we read from top to the bottom, left to the right. And it's the exact same thing this is done. From top to bottom, left to right. The first thing it's seen is artificial. I'm assuming it's meant to be saying artificial. And it's basically word for word, like letter for letter. Oops, let me bring that image back so you can see it. Translated exactly what I saw in the image. Even really random words that obviously this was speech to text, kind of closed captions happening in this presentation. And they've just taken it exactly. It's even read kind of what's written on this signage, I guess. And even the fact that it's in caps lock and these words aren't in caps lock. It really is very quick at doing this and understanding. And there's just a lot more information here, which, I mean, you can kind of narrow down and be like, I don't want to see all that. But what I do want to kind of point out here is there's image tags. So what's in this image, it's just tagged a few things. So there's text. Yep, there's clothing. I mean, the man is wearing things. There's a person, there's a sign, which we can see through the main signage at the front. There's some kind of design, which, I mean, yeah, I think that's something in Amsterdam, I'm assuming, some buildings in Amsterdam. And there's a man standing there, and the fact that it's a man. And based on these tags, it's actually created a caption for the image. All these different tags that it's used, and the actual caption, you can see here. I'm just going to highlight it. I'm going to highlight the whole thing if I don't let go next time. Is a man standing in front of a sign with the confidence of 0.91. So it's almost sure that there is a man standing in front of a sign in this image. And look, it's not wrong. It's just the fact that I didn't pick up the fact that this was maybe a monitor. But actually it did, but it's just captioned that differently. So if you look at the image tags, it's realized that there's a monitor or a screen somewhere in this image. But the caption it's provided is there's a man standing in front of a sign somewhere, which isn't terrible for what it's done without me having to do too much effort involved from my point of view. I've just clicked a few buttons. Let's look at another image. Let's get rid of this one. Let's try this one. So as most of us would probably know, that's Satya Nadella. He's the CEO of Microsoft. I mean, maybe he's not a celebrity, but he's definitely a fairly well-known person. So let's see what happens if I search for Satya. I read this time. Will it have identified him as a famous person. So this seems like a really big document because the content looks like is a wordy document. But let's look at the other search result it gave back. And I'm just sorry, I keep going the other way around on the MacBook. But this is the image that we've looked for, and this is what it's given us back. So in the text, in this image, there's Microsoft Linux, which that is exactly what it says. Even though it's a little bit blurry at the end, it was okay with doing that. This image has a few tags. There's a person, there's some text in it, there's a man, there's a human face. I'm glad it's recognized that that's human. Clothing, and there's glasses involved, and the person is male. That's handy enough tags. I mean, that kind of explains everything. The only thing I can see otherwise is maybe a brick wall, but hey, I'm not fussy that it didn't pick that up. And the image caption, and you can see the little tags that it's figured out in here. The person, there's a man, there's a cell. I didn't even notice that he was holding a cell phone, but there you go. Like, it's picked that up. That he's standing and he's holding something, water. I'm assuming it's just the fact that it's blue. I don't know, there's a bunch of different things, but the caption it's ended up deciding on is Satya Nadella holding a sign. And this is just based on, okay, it's recognized a human face, and it's checked if this was a celebrity, which was something that we ticked in the OCR. It's given that person a name based on the AI running in the background, and then actually captioned this image altogether, which is, yep, maybe he's not holding a sign, he's standing in front of a sign, but he's holding something else. So you can see the kind of things it's connecting up dots and stuff in places. Maybe let's just look at one more. Maybe let's look at the document. So this is a big, it's a shareholder communication, I think, from LinkedIn. There's a bunch of different companies named in here, I think. There's EY, SAP, Microsoft, Lynda, a bunch of different things mentioned. What else is mentioned in this that we can kind of look for when we search for this? LinkedIn Corporation, Delaware, that's a place somewhere in America, I'm pretty sure. So there's a bunch of different things in here. Let's see if I search for maybe, what's the most, LinkedIn. That was the most obvious thing on that page. If I search for LinkedIn, what will it give me back? So what it's done is it's read through this document, which I showed you a second ago. If I can keep it up, that would be great. It's read through this document. It's found different things. It's found people in this. So Linda, I mean, it could be a Linda, a person. Sincerely, that's a weird one that's figured out as people for some reason. But other people in there are, actually, it's interesting. Independence is definitely not people or no, but names, I mean, I guess some people have names with thirds or fourths. I don't know. It's not going to be always perfect. It is AI. It's definitely picked out organizations. So LinkedIn Corp, EY, we saw that. There was SAP in there somewhere. New York Stock Exchange. There's a bunch of different things. It's obviously going to the stock shareholders. And what else has I picked up? Oh, locations. So yeah, I think Delaware was definitely something we noticed. And this is, I mean, this is a big long file, multiple different pages. I'm sure there's DC and Washington mentioned in other places. And it gives you back the content too, so you can figure it out. But this is just an easy way to test if it's returning the right things, if it's finding the things you want it to find, and everything in its right place. So hope those demos have made sense. They were a little bit all over the place at times, but let's jump back into the slides for now and kind of start wrapping things up a little bit. So when we talk about structured data workflow, so that's kind of where you've got a SQL database or some kind of relational database in a table. What's the workflow that we've just kind of seen? So we found the sample data, wherever that's sitting. We connected it up through the UI interface, which was through the connections and stuff. Obviously, there's limited data sources through that method, but if you wanted to go and do it coding, like programmatically, there is source code and sample code available on the documents. Feel free to go to whatever language it's your favorite. Python, I think they've got Python, they've got REST, they've got a bunch of different ones. Feel free to have a look through. That you can actually connect up any data source that you want. I just went through the ones that are pre-existing already in Azure. You can define an index schema, which again, it'll just pre-populate most of it for you realistically through the UI thing. If there's anything missing, really shouldn't be, but if there is, you can add any extra fields. Make sure you check/tick the right attributes that you want, because you won't be able to edit them at a later stage. You define your indexer, how often you want it to go pick up your data and put it in the right places when there's new data coming in. And then you create and test it out just to make sure everything works. And once you've done that, go apply it and attach it to whatever solutions that you'd like. The only thing that changes, say, in an unstructured data workflow, which was the last example we just looked at, which is a bunch of different things kind of thrown into your Blob storage. You still have your data, you still connect it up to a place, which is Blob Store for me. You create a skill set. So this was the added level of you're adding in your AI enrichments, depending on exactly what your data needs. I had a lot of images, so I made sure to turn on OCR. You define your index schema, again, like you previously did, just to make sure everything's in the right place, everything's searchable. You define your indexer, how often it's going to go do it, put in the right places, and then you test it out. And that's basically the workflow that we've kind of just seen and worked through in different scenarios. So as a recap, I hope you kind of have an understanding of what the Azure Cognitive Search is and why it kind of exists and makes life easier. How do you connect up your data? How do you ingest it? And how do you get it ready to be able to search? Which overall, look, I mean, I was able to create 3 different indexes based on 3 different data sources in the last 45 minutes. It doesn't take time. It's just making sure you are reflecting your own business scenarios. It might take a little bit longer to make sure you get the right things at the start. And then you add in your AI at the end of it, which again is on another few ticks of buttons, and you've got a really well-functioning AI. Not everything's correct, like the people it was finding were sincerely as a person. Not always correct, but again, that is kind of the limitations of AI as always. If you do want to have a really more custom approach, you can always create your own cognitive services, create your own enrichment, add those in. So I hope you're kind of walking away with a kind of understanding of it. If you do go test it out for yourself, let me know. My Twitter is there. Feel free to reach out. There's nothing better than getting someone to be like, hey, I tried what you told me to and it worked. Makes my day. So please, any happiness in this lockdown, I will take it. So look, thank you for listening. I'm happy to kind of go to any questions people might have, if they do.
Thanks, Akanksha. I'm just going to go across to our other platform, Learn TV, and see if there are any questions. Okay, we have one question that came through. That is, are there pre-built templates for data schemes for SharePoint? I've just put that in the question section.
That's a good question. Yes and no. So it's the SharePoint connector as a, let me just open up the Microsoft thing. Start with just saying words. So when you go, let me go back in here. When you import your data, and if you're using SharePoint as your data source, it's in preview at the moment. So I'm sure in the next couple of months, it'll be GA, but it'll be the exact same process as we just saw. Sorry, I don't have anything connected to the SharePoint at the moment, so I can't show you exactly what it looked like, but it'll be the exact same thing. It'll read the data you've provided, and it'll come up with, based on what you can see, what the schema should look like. And if there's anything missing, you can add it in or remove anything from there as well. So yes, but again, it's in preview, so it might not be fully there yet.
Okay, great. And then just a follow-up question for that one is, why can't the search schema be updated? What is the technical background that prevents this feature from existing?
It's a question I have too, to be honest. But honestly, I think it's just the fact that once things have been created, so for example, the hotels one, these are the fields in this specific index. I think it's just once it's been created, the indexer has already gone and put the data in its right places, and that's what it understands it needs to do. The retrievability is always going to be editable because it's just what it shows as a result. So maybe you just don't want to show all of it. That can always be edited. I think it's just the fact that data has already been assigned specific values, and it's just at the moment, if you think about it, if you change any of these attributes, you'll have to reassign all of your data through the indexer again, which is essentially the same as recreating your index at its base. Maybe they're going to work on that. I'm not too sure, but that's where it's at the moment.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, everyone, for their questions, and Akshanka for speaking again. We'll give everyone just another minute to ask any questions, but in the meantime, I'll just give a quick reminder to check in for today with the event code 14235. So Akanksha mentioned that there were those links, so those are in that check-in link for you. This is being recorded. I believe someone has asked that, so this will go straight to our YouTube channel after this, so there will be that on-demand version. If you go to the check-in link, there's a link to the YouTube channel there. Also, you'll see I've just put in the link to our feedback survey as well with that same event code 14235, and we do love feedback. That appears to be all for the questions. Oh, there we go. Oh, Calvin just said thanks, Akanksha. Thank you. Thank you very much for speaking with us today at the Microsoft Reactor. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Have a good rest of your afternoon, evening, or morning, and we'll see you next time for another Microsoft livestream event.
Bye.
Bye.